Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today we're going to talk about the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio and just looking at this continued trend that we've been speculating on for the last few months. We also talked about it last year, so if you guys like the content, please subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and also please check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. Let's go ahead and jump in. So if you're new to the channel, I'll just show this trend again if you've been here for a while. Bear with me because we will talk about something we haven't spoken about before in terms of a little bit more traditional TA. So normally we focus more on custom analysis, custom charts, looking at things in a slightly different way. But occasionally I like to pull up more traditional indicators that people use and explain them so that at least if this is the only channel you follow on in crypto and you're not familiar with some of these things, it at least allows you to be informed that these tools do exist and you can use them. So the first thing we will note is that, again, going into the fourth quarter every single year, we tend to decrease. So throughout the fourth quarter, I should say, the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio tends to decrease. Okay? And we've seen that year after year, basically going into December. It's generally not a great time for the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio, and we've been speculating that maybe it's going to play out again. Okay, maybe it's going to play out again. We don't know where this will line up exactly. I mean, it could go here, could go here. I have no idea. This could be the bottom, right? This could be the local bottom, and this trend might not repeat at all. This is obviously a possibility. Things don't have to repeat identically. But the nice thing about this trend, right, is the opportunity that it sets up, right? And it's that December buy of Ethereum with Bitcoin. And I mean, obviously it depends on how I draw this, but approximately like an 1800% move. The first one buying it in December with Bitcoin and selling in the first quarter. So within 90 days, that was, a 600% move, almost a 400% move. Here was one that was only 60% or so. And then this one we talked about on the channel last year during this time period and speculated that we were going to see a pretty major move in the short term, and we did. And it was mainly just because the trend was set up perfectly. And so now we still can't say for sure because we're not in December yet. We still have a little bit over a month to go. But the trend is heading in that direction. Now, we're going to go over another tool that I don't typically talk about on the channel. It's just the relative strength index. It's pretty simple. The general idea is if it's 30 or below, it's oversold. If it's 70 or above, it's overbought. And the trend we're going to be looking at is we're going to draw a rectangle starting at 40 and approximately 40 and going down and say, what? We can recognize some trends here in this as measured by the relative strength index, okay? And one of them, right? One of them is the idea, I guess that. Sorry, let me get off the rectangle. Let me switch back to a brush. One of them is the fact that every December, you can see that it's reached this level below 40. So somewhere between 30 and 40. Every December, the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio has hit, except for this first one, right? When it first launched, it had just launched, this is where it was. Every December since then, you can see that the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio has been somewhere between 30 and 40, right? And then we note that if we then draw, say, these other circles, so in the first quarter of the year, they tend to be pretty high. So here was one around 90, and this one here was also around 90 as well. This was January, or the first quarter of 2016, first quarter of 2017. Here is the first quarter of 2018. That one was lower, but still relatively high. I mean, getting to the upper half for sure. The only one that was fairly low was the one in the first quarter of 2019, and then we also had the first quarter of 2020. Which saw us back around 70. So if we were to draw another rectangle and instead of starting going from 40, so here we'll say like 10 below the oversold or overbought regime, and just say something like that, this is the general trend. And one of the things we've talked about, right, not in terms of the RSI, but the general trend tends to be down after the first quarter in terms of the RSI. Now there are times where it can pop back up, but let me just show you what I mean. So from here to here, from the first quarter to the fourth quarter, it trended downwards. From here to here, it trended downwards. Yes, there was another peak later on in the summer, but over the macro scale, it tended to trend down. Here it also trended down. Here is another example of it trending down, and it still trended down despite the fact that the peak was only at around 50. This was the only time it was this low. This one was slightly anomalous because it actually did see a higher peak later on. But even with this, if we were to see something like, if we were to see this, continue down into this regime and then bounce back up, no, I don't think anyone would necessarily fault you for just drawing this line like this and saying it trended. This was among the highest peaks, but actually we did have one slightly higher, kind of similar to 2017. But in general, you can see that despite, we had a really good summer. We also had a really good summer over here. Despite that, typically speaking, the first quarter of the year for Ethereum tends to be the best time with respect to its gain on Bitcoin. Okay, yes, occasionally we'll see a summer pump. We've seen these before, right? So we've seen it here. Let's change colors. We saw a summer pump here. We saw one here as well. There's been other summer pumps, but here's another one, right? But for the most part, the first quarter tends to be among the most oversold or overbought times, so the most FOMO going into Ethereum. So with that said, the idea is, well, if this is true, are we setting up for yet another timely December buy of Ethereum with Bitcoin? One of the other things I was wanting to show, which I thought was interesting, was if you just connect these macro peaks, they actually do tend to line up like perfectly. If I get rid of these circles, you probably can see it a little bit clearer. But you can see, just how well we have this point. We hit it here, right? Hit it here, here, and then here. So perhaps this is just, yet one more tool in the toolbox we can use to try to identify if the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio is getting really overbought, and if it is, recognizing that like anything else, we're probably going to experience diminishing returns, and to some degree, as we've mentioned before, right? Lengthening cycles, and I mean, it's hard to say exactly how that would play out, but just recognize that it's a possibility, even in terms of crypto to crypto trades. Not as much as I would say crypto to US, but just know that it is a possibility that theoretically that could happen in terms of hitting this macro trend line. But we'll keep an eye on it and see if that plays out at all. So the main thing now is to essentially just watch the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio and see, is this going to continue? Are we going to get another key buying opportunity, or will we turn around here and just completely set a new trend, right? We just don't know what will happen. One thing to consider is, this is when it first launched, and so there's really not a ton of, it's not necessarily that useful, but this was the beginning essentially of the bull market. It's possible it doesn't even make it back down into this region, right? It's possible, and maybe it's possible because if we are in the beginning of a bull market, maybe it just turns around. It doesn't even get to this point. Okay, so the point of the video is to not say that you should wait until December necessarily to buy any Ethereum. Of course, this is not financial advice. Do what makes sense for you. The point is that just to recognize that there could be a key opportunity coming up if in fact the same thing plays out. But again, this is not, if you're wanting to have a position for Ethereum for the market cycle, putting all your eggs in one basket is generally not a good idea, right? If you want to know what I'm doing, remember you can check out the premium list at intothecryptoverse.com. You get access to the weekly premium videos, the weekly premium reports, the Telegram alerts channel, the Telegram chat room, and the risk dashboard, which is what I use to trade. You can pay with crypto. for 12 months and get a 15% discount. So I would encourage you to check it out if you're interested in that. Remember, the focus of the channel is not to identically time tops or identically time bottoms. The focus is to slowly move in and out of positions when it makes sense to do so, and what does the data suggest will likely happen. Like, what does the data suggest this momentum shift in the market will be? And if you see this momentum shift coming, it doesn't mean you have to try to time it down to the day, because for the most part you'll get it wrong, and why even worry about it? But you just kind of scoop out the trend, right? You start, to give you an idea, maybe you start buying in this region, right? And then when it comes out of it and it's up here, you're selling. And so this is just one idea, right? But you don't necessarily try to time the bottom or try to time the top. You just recognize that you don't know where the bottom or top is, and so you work with what you have. So, with that said, we'll continue to follow the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio, and we don't know where it'll go, right? I mean, I don't know if it'll go all the way back down here. I don't know if it will. One possibility, of course, is it's been moving down pretty quickly. It's possible we see a bounce in November and then come down in December, right? I mean, that's always a possibility. So you have to consider a lot of different possibilities. If you do remember, though, on the channel, we have spoken at length about this rectangle, and the idea that I think we'll spend a decent amount of time within that rectangle this market cycle. I think Ethereum Bitcoin ratio will spend a decent period of time in this rectangle. I mean, it's possible. I mean, this upward trend here isn't going to last forever, right? Like that. I mean, at some point, I imagine we'll break out of it and move sideways at the very least. Remember, this market cycle is going to be a long one, and if it extends to 2023, which is all the way out here, I sincerely doubt that the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio will just continue to stay within this trend line for the next 2 to 3 years. I don't see that happening. The point of the trend line was to identify the fact that this was a momentum shift, right? If you do like traditional TA, a double bottom, a momentum shift in the market from going generally down to generally up, and it does not go up monotonically. We see these little bunny hills that we have to overcome, but for the most part, it is a momentum shift in the market. And the idea is we've noticed this pattern with the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio in the past, so we're just going to see if it plays out in the future. It does not mean that Ethereum is a bad buy where it currently is. Again, if you're like me, you're not necessarily trying to time the bottom or tops perfectly, but what we recognize is that if the opportunity presents itself, because we're already at 48 on terms of the weekly RSI, if we end up going down to the below 40 and get into this region by, say, the December timeframe, like right, if we fall pretty quickly into December, then it's just going to be such a great setup for another timely first quarter move, which is historically when Ethereum tends to perform really well. So the first quarter and then the summer, a lot of time, that's generally when Ethereum does its best. Fourth quarter is not a good time for Ethereum, at least with respect to its ratio against Bitcoin. It does not mean it's always bleeding with respect to USD. The point, right, is to say that with respect to Bitcoin, Bitcoin tends to outperform Ethereum in the fourth quarter of the year. It could mean Bitcoin's going up and Ethereum just can't keep up with it. It could mean Bitcoin's going down and Ethereum's bleeding more. There's a lot of things that it could mean, but the point is that in the fourth quarter of the year, the ratio of Ethereum Bitcoin tends to not do so well, and therefore we look forward to the first quarter because that's when it tends to shine. And we're just talking about the RSI in terms of using one more indicator to try to figure out if this perfect setup will happen for yet a 6th year in a row. So if you guys like the content, please subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to get to 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year. We talk more about quantitative methods on the channel than I feel like most channels do, at least in the crypto world. So if you guys like a different perspective, please subscribe. We also have the Telegram channel in the description below as well. We recently hit over 7,000 members. And then also, of course, there's the premium list at intothecryptoverse.com if you want access to more of my candid thoughts on the market and what I'm doing. And then, of course, weekly reports and videos, etc. So that'll wrap it up for this time, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.